afternoon. My name is Angela Kirby. I'm the director here at Hatton Harrisburg, and I'm joined with my colleagues Jess Haas and Dr. Nicole Holland-Sims, who will be on our presentation today. If you can hear me okay, can you please just tap yes and type yes in the chat box, and then we'll get started. Okay, wonderful. It looks like everybody is able to hear me okay. Well, welcome to our first of a series of monthly webinars for AEDY facilities, both AEDY facilities that are run by LEAs in-house and or private providers. We are excited to offer this professional development and provide you with timely updates as to how we are going about supporting the Department of Justice's requirements for the Pennsylvania Department of Education to comply with when it comes to alternative education programs for disruptive youth. So we're going to quickly provide you an update on AEDY specific to training plans and the application process and the resubmission process. And Angela here will provide you that update. Then my colleague Jess Haas will provide you just a brief update on where we are with regards to student monitoring and where we are with the facilitated self-assessment. We also have our colleagues on from Leader Services who are here to kind of walk through some screenshots of the student referral system and answer questions that folks have. And then lastly, we have the honor of having Dr. Nicole Holland-Sims, who has spent the last 2 days training, but came to us for the end of her day to just give us a brief overview. We're calling these kind of mini introductions to our face-to-face professional development opportunities that all LEAs, sending folks, LEAs running programs, or private providers may avail of at no cost. So this is just a mini introduction onto a multi-tiered system of support for behavior and how you might go about locally conceptualizing that for your own individual area. So without further ado, just wanted to kind of give you a quick update on the training plans for AEDY. So what I've done, and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. I'm going to share my screen right now. So I'm showing the patent website at this point. Hopefully everybody is able to see that, or should be able to see it now. And so as you can see on the patent website, we wanted to show you where, everybody knows where the PDE AEDY facility supports are, but we wanted to show you where the technical assistance supports are through patent. So in order to access this component, part of our website, which will become much more robust as we engage in professional development and provide resources to support you this year, you would go to the patent website, www.patent.net, and you would click on supports. When you click on supports, the first tab you'll see is alternative education for disruptive youth. So if you click on that, it'll take you to some resources. The first is the AEDY training plan, and this is still in draft form, but I'm going to briefly walk through that today. The second link will take you to webinars that we've conducted. And so you'll see some YouTube links here. And this is where we will continue to post these ongoing professional development opportunities for you. The video link here that you'll see is the presentation we did a couple weeks ago on where we are with the application process specific to the provisional approval of programs across the Commonwealth. Additionally, the PowerPoint presentation and the video provides you with updates on MTSS behavior and what you need to do in order to revise your model to be reflective of what the expectations are of the department and the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Additionally, the components of the English Learner Plan and the necessary requirements, both of the LEA sending as well as the AEDY providers, is clearly articulated in that webinar. And there are aligned resources to support you as you build out those models. So the PowerPoint presentation that's linked here takes you to hyperlinks that will actually take you through the requirements of an L plan and what is in that. It's about an hour webinar. It really addresses ESSA requirements for English learners. There's also updated resources on how you would go about revising your MTSS model as well as your individual student positive behavior support plans. So that's the first section in the website. The other area is the training plan. And just to facilitate this today, I already have that open in my piece here. So I don't, let's see. So we'll just go here. And hopefully now, I'm hopefully seeing that you're seeing this training plan that now is posted And this is the training plan that you can also find on the patent website, which I just shared with you. So this training plan reflects Pennsylvania Department of Ed's commitment to providing evidence-based free professional development through its patent system to LEAs and private providers who run AEDY facilities. This is our comprehensive approach to providing training and technical assistance via face-to-face trainings, monthly webinars, asynchronous professional development, as well as job-embedded technical assistance, and will assure that personnel associated with supporting students in AEDY facilities across Pennsylvania have adequate training to equitably meet the complex needs of the students they serve. PDE will hold these monthly webinars on the third Thursday of each month, beginning obviously today, so thank you for joining us. But they will also be archived because we know that folks potentially can't get on from 3 to 4:30 every day, on these dates. They'll all be archived, and they'll be archived in the area on the patent website that I just shared with you. We will always kind of give you quick updates on specific things aligned with AEDY, so compliance components that we know you need to be in place. But then we'll also do something very programmatic in every one of these webinars. So we'll address compliance, but we'll also be addressing program. And that's going to be a critical piece of our work. It's to ensure that not only are we looking at what the expectations are, but that we're doing it based on the evidence. And that's really something that the Department of Education and the Department of Justice is calling on us as we continue this work. Now you will see that the draft agenda that was posted here does not reflect what we're talking about today, and we will do this on a monthly basis. We will make modifications based on the type of feedback and information that we're getting right away. So although we were very purposeful in our planning a month ago when we thought about this, there's very immediate things that we know that you need and we're hearing from you. So the agenda today will reflect that, and we just ask for your to be flexible with us as we, on a monthly basis, try to meet your needs. We will have purposefully planned the programmatic pieces, but the compliance pieces will really be updated as needed. So although today it said we were going to review the DOJ Settlement Agreement and the updates to the BEC, we're still in the process of reviewing the updates to the BEC, so that's not ready for prime time. What we do want to share with you today, however, is our planning around monitoring the facilitated self-assessment, as well as what you need to know in order to refer students. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation and would just like to share with you that the ongoing expectation of LEAs that run in-house programs as well as private providers is that you are revising your applications based on the feedback you got, which allowed you then to provisionally begin running programs for school, knowing that school was getting started. So you should be working on getting those updates ready to go and getting them resubmitted so that we can then approve you officially. So with that said, I would like to turn this over to my colleague, Jess, who will be specifically talking about monitoring and the facilitated self-assessment. And Jess, I'm just going to mute myself. Well, actually, I'm just going to have you just talk these.
Okay. I'm hoping you can hear me. We are coordinating currently the monitoring, the facilities, both the providers and the in-house providers, the monitorings for the current upcoming year. We haven't finalized that list yet, but it will be forthcoming. We also are currently in process of creating the facilitated self-assessment, which will be required to be completed 30 days prior to the on-site visit. More information will come once you've been identified as either in-house provider being monitored or just a provider site being monitored.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Jess. And so the next component of our presentation today is the student referral system, and we would love to have Leader Services take over and kind of just give us a quick update. Screenshot. So who from Leader should I be giving control of the presentation today? Did you do it? Okay, so Leader, I'm looking for you here. Okay, participants.
Is it George?
Leader Services.
pass off screen privileges to me.
George, sorry, I just unmuted you. So if you could start all over again, that would be great. Because I think we're just letting you folks here right now.
Okay, yeah, hi, this is Keith and George from Leader Services, the developers of the online system, and we're going to briefly go through the process of creating a referral and show some screens that are involved and the flow of submitting a referral to a provider and returning it.
Great.
So I think I need you to
I'm in the process
hand off the screen control to me.
Yeah, so I have just done that, and it is waiting for you to control share your screen.
Sure. Yeah, it says cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Okay, go ahead, try now, please. Sorry about that.
Okay. I just did a screen at the top left. This and share.
Okay, excellent. You should be seeing the login screen now for the AEDY system.
Yep, we are. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna log in as a test LEA. Now, when you log in as an LEA, they'll have the option to create and manage referrals, and it'll all be handled within this bar right in the middle of the screen, student referrals. So they'll see this link, referrals created by your LEA, and they'll have a dashboard that lists counts of all referrals in the status that said referral is in. In process means it was created but not submitted to the provider. Transitioning means it was submitted to the provider, not yet accepted. And when I say provider, that could mean private provider or in-house provider. In placement means the provider has accepted it and is working on the student is in placement and it's the 45-day window or whatever. Transitioning back is when the provider finishes their responsibilities and submits the referral and student back to the LEA. And post-placement means that the LEA has re-accepted the referral and the student back into the system, and they're going to complete the post-placement section. So to create a referral, the LEA would click this green plus and they would punch in a PA Secure ID, which typically this page sends that Secure ID to PIMS, which returns a snapshot of the student's demographic data. Seeing as I'm in as a test district, I don't have any legitimate students, so when you enter a student that is not found by the PIMS snapshot, it returns by telling you the Secure ID is not found. You can manually add the student, which is what we'll do right now. And that just means instead of having the demographics already imported into the referral for you, you have to add them yourself. So we'll go ahead and punch in a test student. And the demographics is just name, date of birth, gender, ethnicity, race, and the student's primary exceptionality. So after we've entered all that, we would click Create Referral at the bottom of the screen. Now the referral has been begun, and the second step is to enter any PSSA or Keystone scores that might apply to this student. Keep in mind that you don't have to enter them right now. You can always circle back to this page at any point during the referral process to add these scores. But just to show you what it looks like, we're going to click here to add a score, and it's just 5 drop-downs: school year, the type of the test, the grade, the subject, and the score. So once you enter those, you click Save. You have the option to add more scores or proceed to the demographics page. And like I said, you can always come back to this section to add more scores. So we're going to click here to go to the referral demographics page. Now, you'll get used to this, but in the beginning, you always want to remember, as soon as you go into a referral, click this bar on the left side, which brings out the fly outside navigation menu, and then pin it to the screen by clicking this little push pin right here. This left side nav has all the sections that you can quickly go back and forth to. It tells you the status of the referral, and on the demographic screen, which we're on right now, we'll always have the link that begins the referral status change process, which we'll go through shortly. So as you can see, we're on the demographics screen, that first section in pre-placement, and all the information in bold is what we entered on the manual enter screen. If this was a student that the PIM snapshot had returned to us, we would have landed right on this screen with this information already filled in. But seeing as we didn't, we just had to enter that manually. That's the only difference. And down here is the PSSA score that we entered, and here is the link to add more. At any point, you can go back to that section from this link right here. So there's 5 sections in the pre-placement: demographics, criteria, behaviors, verification, and manifestation. There's certain pieces of information in each of these sections that must be filled in before the LEA can submit the referral to the provider. Demographic screen we can see right here. The criteria screen, if you've done these referrals on paper, you're going to be familiar with a lot of this stuff. But the criteria screen, the second section, you would just have to select one or more of these criteria, which has resulted in the student being referred to the provider. So we'll go ahead and choose number 2, set that as the primary reason, and save and stay at the bottom. Every page has a save and stay and a save and go to next section. They're pretty self-explanatory. You want to get in the practice of saving your work periodically, especially if you get up from your computer to attend to other matters, because after 60 minutes of inactivity, the system will log itself out for security purposes. 45 minutes. 40 minutes. So this is section 2, the criteria. We set the criteria, and we can proceed to the third section, which is behaviors and intervention. I'm going to leave this blank for now just to show how the validation process works when submitting the referral to the provider. The fourth section, verification. All that's on this section is the date and time that the informal hearing was scheduled and the date and time that the parent was contacted to attend the hearing, the location of the hearing, and this drop-down, which is important. This is the drop-down is where the LEA will set what provider they're sending this student to. Typically, well, not typically, but what the LEA will see is any program that is on their approved program list from their application. So I'll just set it to that test location and save it. And the last section in pre-placement is manifestation, and that just has 2 affirmations, one that the manifestation was conducted and one that the special education supervisor reviewed and approved it. And lastly, there is an upload tool where you can attach any regular or special education documents to this referral that you think the provider would need while processing the referral. You would upload a file by, well, let's go ahead and just show you real quick. Let's find the PDF or Word document on your local drive, click open, choose a file type. It could be any of these special education documents, or if it doesn't apply to any of those, just choose other, and you could punch in what it is over here in this text area. Click upload, the page refreshes, there's the document. Now everyone at the LEA and the receiving provider will have access to this document. So when we think we've completed enough information to submit the referral to the provider, we would circle back to the demographic screen, and you'll see on the left side, submit student referral to provider. We're going to click that, and we have to run a validation test to make sure that the referral has all the information required to submit to the provider. This information is dynamic and depends on what criteria was selected. So we'll go ahead and click validate. We failed validation for 2 reasons. In the demographics section, we didn't include a guardian name, phone, and email, and we didn't add at least 1 disruptive behavior. So each of these failed validations is also a link to the section where the information is missing. So if I click guardian name, phone, and email are required, we're going to come back here to the demographics screen and see that the guardian information is missing. So we'll go ahead and punch in a guardian, a phone, and for phone and email, you either are required to enter a phone number or check not available, and same goes for email. You don't have to have this guardian's email, but you at least have to signify that you don't have that information. So we'll do that and we'll save. Now if we try to submit it again, we'll see that we're no longer failing the parent guardian information, but we still have to add at least one completed disruptive behavior. So this again takes us to section 3, behaviors and interventions. And we have to add at least one disruptive behavior in this section. So we'll click add, and what's required is the date of the disruptive behavior and the disruptive behavior itself. And an optional notes field. This field is not required to pass validation. So you would enter your disruptive behavior here and click save at the bottom. You're alerted that the behavior has been saved, and you now have access to add interventions, administrative, counselor, and SAP interventions. We'll quickly look at those, and the administrative interventions is just these 7 intervention methods: reflection documents, connect to student, teachers in meetings, child study meetings, and in and out of school suspension dates. And at the bottom, there is an option to upload a document. Let's say you have this information already stored electronically and you don't want to have to type it into the system again. You could always just upload that PDF or Word document into this section, and then maybe in other you would say see attachment. The counselor section is similar. There is dates for each intervention and the possible outcome. And at the bottom, there's an upload tool if you wanted to upload a file that had that information already in it. And finally, the SAP intervention. There's 6 options here: outside agencies, mental health, counseling services, and if the parent or student refused SAP services. And finally, an upload tool at the bottom of this section as well. So in this particular set of circumstances, only the behavior and the behavior date are required. And since I've entered the date and the behavior, I should be able to pass validation. So we'll go back to demographics, we'll click submit, and we'll try to validate. And this time we have a green light. We're free to go to the submission page, which is the last step before the referral is passed off to the provider. So we'll go to that page right here. And what this does is pulls the provider's email addresses out of the provider's application, the superintendent and the program coordinator. So you also have the option to manually enter one or more emails in this text box right here. You can uncheck the provider's email addresses that are pulled from the application and enter ones that maybe pertain more to this referral. The only requirement is at least one email has to be either checked off or entered. So we'll uncheck these fake ones, we'll add mine, and it just reminds you that when you submit, the people will be emailed above, and the LEA will be notified when the provider accepts the referral. And lastly, from the time you submit this referral, you can no longer make changes to the pre-placement section now that it's being handed off to the provider. You'll still be able to view the entire referral, but you'll lose edit capabilities for the time being. So we'll submit the referral to the provider. It's going to send off an email. And boom, the provider has been sent an email notification. You can no longer make modifications to this referral until the provider returns it to you. And you'll see now that this referral that started in process is now in the referrals transitioning to AEDY provider column. We'll click the one and we'll see, there it is, created today and status of some transitioning to provider. Meanwhile, the provider received an email saying that this student referral is being submitted to their program. So they're gonna, at this point, log in and accept the referral and do the placement section, which I'll do real quick. So we know that it was submitted to this provider. So they log in, they see a similar index screen as the LEA's student referral index. They only have these three options: incoming referrals, the one representing the one that we just submitted, students that are in placement, and student referrals that are transitioning back to the LEA. So if we click this one, we'll see here's the referral that the LEA just sent to us, Jerry Jones from Mercury. We view the referral, and it reminds them that they cannot make changes to this referral until they accept it. All that does is change the status of the referral and alert the LEA that the provider has accepted it, because the provider does have the option to reject the referral if they feel they need more information within. So the link is on the side for the provider, accept or reject the referral from the LEA. And this email screen you'll see several times throughout the process. This time it's pulling the email addresses of the contacts in the application of the LEA. So we'll change those, put mine in, and when you click accept, it changes the status of the referral and gives the provider edit capabilities for the placement section in the middle there. So let's accept the student referral from the LEA. The email is sent and the referral has been accepted. The LEA has been notified that the referral has been accepted by the provider, and you can begin to work on the placement section. I can go right into the placement section by clicking this link, but I'm just going to quickly show you that the provider now sees that the referral has left incoming and is now in placement. So the first thing the provider sees when they go into the placement section is, was this placement the result of an expulsion from the LEA? If they choose yes, it gives them the option to enter the placement date and the date the expulsion ends, because the exit date will be set to 1 business day following the end of the expulsion. If they were to say that it was not a result of expulsion, then all they would have to do is enter the placement date and click calculate presumptive exit date, which is 45 weekdays. 11/14 will be the exit date. Once satisfied with this exit date, you can set the placement date and exit date by clicking the green button. It says, reminder, you'll have the ability to add incrementally 1 day at a time extra days onto the presumptive exit date for snow days or fall break or whatever it may be. So we'll set the placement and exit date right now. And we see that the placement date is 9/12, and that'll always stay over here on the left side as a reminder. And the first presumptive exit date is November 14th. Now, like I just mentioned, if you needed to add a day to that for whatever reason, you'll always see this link to view or modify the first presumptive exit date. We'll click that and click adjust by 1 day. It says the previous exit date was the 14th, a Thursday. The new one's the 15th, a Friday. You would choose the reason, whatever it may be, Thanksgiving recess, no classes, hit adjust. You're going to see that the previous exit date is the 14th, the new one is the 15th, and when we circle back to the placement section, it's been updated in this panel to reflect that the new exit date is November 15th. Now the provider has 45 days to perform their services or whatnot, and what's required of the provider is to answer these 2 radios on whether or not the student was present during the first or second semester, the date of the status update meeting, and the result of the status update. And be sure to click save this information right here below that text box. changes have been saved. After 45 days, the provider will either determine that the student is ready for transition back to the LEA or needs to remain in placement. If they had chose remain in placement, the provider would need to explain why it's been determined the student needs to remain in placement, and they would click this. Now, granted, the system will already calculate the second presumptive exit date under 45 business days from the first one, and we would enter something here and click remain. And it would circle back to this same set of questions, but it would be the second presumptive exit date. We're going to skip that. We're going to say the student is ready for transition. So we would just click over here, and it says the student is ready to begin transition back to the classroom. After entering a transition date, click begin, and you'll be required to upload a transition plan before being able to submit the referral back to the LEA. So we'll say the transition began on 11/14 and click begin. Now, all that's left for the provider to do is answer these two survey questions about whether or not the student improved their GPA and place a check in each box below that applies to all considerations that your program considers when giving a student a summary grade. So we'll say these two and we'll click save. And lastly, the provider is required to upload a transition plan in this upload tool right here. So just like all the other upload tools, you would just navigate to, the Word doc or PDF on your local, and you need to put the transition date. And then click upload. You'll see the file is now right underneath the upload tool. It's accessible by the provider and the LEA for the duration of the referral. And you're now able to submit the referral back to the LEA. And to do so, you would go back to the demographic screen and you'll see transition student back to LEA setting. So we'll click that. And the email screen comes up yet again where it's telling you who from the LEA is going to receive an email alerting them that the student is on their way back to the LEA. So I'm happy with who's being emailed. I click transition student referral back to LEA. Okay, the email's been sent. The status of referral has changed to transition to LEA, which you can still find in your third and final column, students transitioning back to LEA. You still have access to the referral until the LEA accepts it, but at this point you only have view-only access. You can't upload anything, you can't change any of this information, and the LEA has to accept the referral back before they can finish out the post-placement section. So let me go ahead and do that real quick.
I have a couple questions. I don't know if you want me to go ahead and read them or if you can see them in the chat session. Would you want me to wait till you're finished?
I don't see them, but probably because I have it minimized. Let me.
I can go ahead and read them to you if you'd like.
Let me see if I can find them. Okay, here we go, chat. All right. Okay, let's see. That's from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
When should we expect to hear back regarding?
So I think the first one that applies to you is, can a print-friendly version of the referral be added?
Yeah, there's a printer-friendly version in development, and we have about one section to complete, and that should be live sometime, I would guess, late next week. And once it's live, you'll see, let me quickly accept this referral. What I'm doing is accepting the referral back into the Mercury School District that the provider sent back to me. So To print a referral, you would just go to the demographic screen where you see the status change links. And in the top right, next to this note icon, there'll be a printer icon. And this takes you to the print preview section where you can pick and choose what sections of the referral you want to print. And then it'll generate a printer-friendly version that you can just Control P right to your printer. Like I said, expect that probably late next week. How does that get? All right. How does the LEA know if the referral was rejected? They'll be emailed, and the emails that are in the LEA's application will be, those will be the emails pulled and sent an email, an automated email from the system that says the provider has rejected the referral. The provider is required to also include some kind of text within the email as to why they're rejecting the referral. And, you know, it typically will say include the IEP or whatever it may be, as well as you'll now see the referral back in the in process column on your referral dashboard. All right, let's see here. The paper version used to require the sending LEA to submit a copy of the student's schedule, transcript, attendance record, and disciplinary record. It isn't clear where on the referral these documents are supposed to be uploaded. If you want to upload any of those 4 documents, schedule, transcript, attendance, or disciplinary records, it would always be in the manifestation section at the very bottom. There's an upload tool where you can upload any kind of file that, you know, doesn't pertain, like it's not the transition plan or it's not part of the behaviors. Anything else would be in this attached special regular education documents upload tool at the very bottom of the manifestation section. Next.
Actually,
if a referral is,
actually, I just want to add one piece. We will be providing guidance within the next week when we give, you know, as soon as we're giving official approvals out to LEAs, we will be actually asking that an additional document around the student's individual L plan be uploaded to, and I'm assuming that this is where any kind of additional documents that would be required would get posted there, and that addresses, I think, Brian's question. So this is where you would upload any of those specific documents, and we'll be giving you some feedback on things that we're going to need in the individual student L plan if the student is an English learner when we get back to everybody with regards to their approvals. But this is where we get uploaded. Okay, thank you.
no problem. So the next question is, if a student referral is terminated because a student moves or a variety of other reasons, how do you remove it from the system? There's going to be a link probably on the student referral dashboard where the LEA or the provider could close a referral prematurely. We're still in talks with PDE on how to proceed from there, but I think it'll require some sort of confirmation from both parties, the provider and the LEA, that the student is dropped out or incarcerated or moved out of district or whatever the scenario may be before closing the referral early can occur. And once it does, the referral will disappear from your dashboard. It'll be stored away in the archives and it'll be gone from your dashboard for good. Next question, why is the presumptive exit date set at 45 days without the ability to shorten it? We've been asked to design it this way, and if the stay at the provider is less than 45 days, you can always end the placement as early as need be, whether it be 15 days, 30, whatever. You don't have to wait 45 days. It's just designed that after 45 days, it's expected the student needs to return to placement or to the LEA or explain why they need to stay longer. But if the stay at the provider is less than 45 days, just begin the transition whenever it needs to begin. Okay, next question. I was told we should wait to completely close out a referral for 30 days after the student comes back to the LEA. I thought once a student transitioned back to the LEA that the referral should be closed out. Well, this is up to the LEA. They can leave the referral open for 30 days. They can finish the post-placement section and close it. The system really doesn't force you in either direction. Whether or not there's guidelines that need to be followed, I would talk to PDE about that. But for now, it's really up to the LEA if they want to follow a 30-day procedure where they wait and see, or finish the post-placement section and close it right away. But you'll just need to, the only time-sensitive information you'll need is the transition end date. The next question is, are there any mandatory uploads of documents, or is it always voluntary? The only mandatory upload is the transition plan, which is to be uploaded by the provider when they're ready to submit the referral back to the LEA. Everything else is...
But I will say, I apologize, this is Angela. We will be providing feedback. There will be a requirement if a student is an L that there's a definition of how those L services will be provided at the AEDY. So that will be required, but stay tuned. That information is forthcoming and will be provided when you are given, when we're approving your overall application. We'll be giving you a template for that document. But in addition to transition, if a student is an L, they're going to have to indicate how those L services are going to be provided.
Okay.
Keith, this is Gina Colarossi. I just also want to add in that section that special education documents are required. Obviously, if the student is identified to be uploaded at this point in that section.
Okay, so we'll have to discuss what documents need to be uploaded. For now, it doesn't require, but we can certainly add logic that if the student is of the special education path, then certain special education documents must be uploaded before the LEA can submit.
Correct. And so we'll make sure that the system has a mark on it so that anyone who's entering understands what documents are required specific to English language as well as special education.
Okay, it looks like the last question, for a week-long break or carryover, summer break, how would one add a block of days to the presumptive exit date? And I'll show you that real quick. There's a special set of circumstances where, let's just go ahead and submit one. Right? I can't get to that button. So I'm going to submit a referral to the provider real quick. Okay, so I'll log in as the provider. And accept this referral. Now, if the placement began in the spring and it calculates the presumptive exit date as sometime in summer, what will happen is, let's say this placement began in May. It's going to determine that the exit date falls within the summer, and you'll see this message. The presumptive exit date falls within the summer block. You'll have the option to manually change the exit date to a date that falls within the following school year in the next step. So as a reminder there, we'll accept and set this placement and exit date. And now, because the exit date falls within the summer, when we go to modify, we also have this option, adjust placement date, exit date by 1 day, or since the exit date falls in the summer, you can adjust the exit date by multiple days. So we click this, And this gives you the option to actually manually enter the presumptive exit date. Instead of having to do it one day at a time with that other screen, you can just say the exit date is September 20th and click adjust. So boom, right off the bat, that changed it. That advanced it 47 days instead of having to do it one by one. And then the current exit date's changed to 9/20, and we'll see that it's also changed back here on the main screen. That's how to change the exit date by large quantities of days, and you can only do that when the original exit date falls within that summer block. And this last question, how to adjust blocks of time for Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter break. As it stands now, if it's 1, 2, 3, 5 days, you need to just manually enter each day. So Easter, I would imagine, is going to be, 2 or 3 days tops. Christmas, I guess, would be a full week. But for those instances, for now, you have to go in and adjust it one day at a time using this link right here. We're in the process of adding functionality where you can advance entire groups of students by one day. So if the provider is closed for 2 days because of weather or whatever it may have been, you can adjust every student that's currently in placement at the provider. You can adjust every student's presumptive exit day by one day at a time, and without having to go into each student referral individually. And that may change in the future where you can add multiple days to each student's referral. But as it stands now, that process will be one day at a time. The only time you can add large quantities of days to the exit date is if the original exit date fell within the summer. Okay, I caught up on questions. Is there anything else? Okay, I guess I'm passing it back off to
Back
folks
here.
at the TAN.
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem. We're going to stop sharing now,
Wonderful.
and you can take it back over.
Great. And let me just make sure that folks. Okay, thank you so much. So as I said, we are going to try to make sure that these webinars provide both kind of procedural compliance components of what you need to do for your program, but we'll also provide many introductions to these face-to-face sessions that are going to be offered throughout the school year. And so we're really excited to have Dr. Nicole Holland-Sims here with us today to give you kind of a quick introduction as to what the are around building a multi-tiered system of support for behavior. Dr. Nicole Holland-Sims is our state lead for behavior, and she also coordinates equity work for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania aligned with our ESSA requirements. So I'm happy to have Nicole here. I'm going to pass the baton to Nicole.
Thank you, Angela, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to have this opportunity to connect with all of you and discuss something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's MTSS for behavior. Now, what you may think is that when we say that, it's interchangeable with PBIS, and in a lot of schools and LEAs and programs across the state, that is the case. However, we do want it to be made clear that when we do discuss multi-tiered systems of support related to behavior, it does not necessarily require you to adopt a PBIS framework. However, the goal is that we would adopt an MTSS structure that supports behavior for the general population that you have and that you serve. So just to remind us that all AEDY programs must implement an MTSS utilizing evidence-based positive behavioral supports. Additionally, the LEA must ensure that AEDY programs offer universal positive behavioral supports and that all students have a clear understanding of rules and expectations. You have probably seen the triangle description in a lot of varying professional learning opportunities. However, I thought it was important for us to describe it in the context of MTSS and how it applies to not only schools across the Commonwealth, but also to AEDY programs that you represent as well. So the goal here is for us to consider our 80 to 90%. So in your AEDY programs, we're talking about your full population of students. And as we know, every student that walks into your doors has a variety of needs that they possess. So depending upon the needs of those students or groups of students that you support, your tiered system should reflect how you are addressing and supporting those behavioral or social emotional needs and also academic needs. So this triangle simply illustrates that at the green level, at the universal tier 1, this should be the preventative, positive, and proactive strategies that are done to support students so that they do not have to stay with you for a long duration. The goal is for them to be responsive and responding to the tier 1 structures that you have in place. And then if there are a small group of students, that 5 to 10%, that require something in addition to what they're receiving at tier 1, keep in mind this is a layered system of support, that they would then get small group instruction or small group supports around that particular area of need. So for instance, if at tier 1, you've adopted a, let's say, positive action curriculum, which is an SEL curriculum that all students would receive, in addition to that positive action support at tier 1, students that maybe have difficulty with anger may receive that positive action curriculum, and on top of that, a small group dedicated to anger management. At the top, tippy top level is 1 to 5%, which we consider tier 3 or the tertiary interventions. So again, we're continuously layering on supports. And in this case, we're being extremely intensive around individual students who have specific needs. So again, thinking back to the positive action example, everyone is receiving that as their core SEL curriculum. At tier 2, you're now in a small group around a particular topic. And then at tier 3, your most neediest students are receiving an individualized approach around their behavioral and social emotional needs. And this essentially summarizes what I just went through. Just to reiterate the importance of addressing the tiers and knowing that tier 1, even in an AEDY program, simply means that all of the students are receiving the positive supports necessary.
So Nicole, one of the questions we often get is, well, you don't understand our population. These students are coming with very specific plans. And some of the feedback that we've given as a result of the DOJ report is that those plans need to address what we know from the research. So if a student has a very specific plan, what we would say that individual plan, that be based on what we know from the research around proactive and preventative strategies. My question is, as we think through what those supports may look like, there's often an issue with behavioral management where we put a student on a plan, but we don't necessarily teach replacement behaviors that serve the same function. I know that that's one of the areas that we'll probably be unpacking when we start to unpack disproportionality data. But as we think about behavior, one of the major misconceptions is that we kind of put a kid on a chart and we give them so many points to work for or deduct from without specifically teaching. And I know that there'll be a lot of supports for that, but is there anything specific that maybe we may be looking for in the new, in the face-to-face trainings that might be helpful for folks as they conceptualize this?
Absolutely. So perfect point. So as we think about some of the things that we'll discuss on those face-to-face trainings, it is the teaching of the replacement behaviors. And one of the things that we'll talk about too, as we think about the students that disproportionately are being put into AEDY placements, is to consider as adults, what are some of the replacement strategies we also can employ when we're teaching those skills. So if we've used the same approach all the time with not really a change result, we have to think about our own internal biases that may be impeding us as we move forward. So that's part of what the face-to-face will take a much more deeper dive, but I'm so happy you brought that up because the key piece around discipline is teaching, not punishment. So that would be the goal. All right, so the essential components, You've probably seen a webinar that's already been developed where these slides look very familiar, so I won't belabor them. However, I just thought it was important to, again, reiterate the key term of prevention. And in a universal system, that is our goal. So we want our students to, again, respond to what we're providing and get them back out into the general population or to their school setting as soon as possible. And the goal would be to be looking at not only behaviors, but those social emotional components that we know each of us possess and need guidance around sometimes on how to self-regulate and be productive citizens. So again, essential components, when we think of academic instruction includes behavioral instruction. So we need to have that universally designed. So again, tier 1, everyone is receiving a similar type of approach. But then as we move up the tiers, it's differentiated based upon the needs that the students are exhibiting. We also have to be culturally and linguistically responsive. So one of the things in the face-to-face that we'll go into a little bit more depth around is disproportionality placement calculations, so that we're able to talk about why are certain students being referred to you on a consistent basis. And so we'll deep dive around those data calculations to help you understand where you are as far as a provider on what you're receiving as far as student populations and how you can be responsive to those specific students that are walking into your door. Just as a quick hint of what's to come, we're going to talk about this concept of vulnerable decision points. And that speaks to basically decision making, whether it's from the school that's sending the student to you, or as a system or a program, how you are responding to the students that you have in front of you, which is typically at the root implicit bias. And implicit bias can be unconscious or things that we don't tend to necessarily think about. And I use this example often. If I don't have lunch by 11:30, I become hangry, as I'm sure many of you can relate to that. So when you're hangry or you're in the midst of feeling tired, the likelihood of you making an irrational decision goes up sky high. This happens with students that, for whatever reason, trigger us when we're in the midst of those decision states. So I'm excited to go a little deeper around that with you when we have those face-to-face opportunities. But that's the piece around responsiveness that is more on the adult level rather than the student. And then again, aligning everything that we do with instruction to our content standards and ensuring that we're appropriate in delivery of those standards. So what I want to leave you with, because as we said, this was a preview, is to think about equity in MTSS for behavior. So one of the things that is coming out of our patent system very soon is what we're calling 8 key responsibility areas around being equitable in disciplinary practices. So I feel as though it's important to connect this to you as you are supporting students that have been basically disciplined from their site and now are sitting in your chairs, and how can you also provide them with equitable discipline? So there's 2 things we need to look at. One is detection, and then how are you responding? So the only way to detect if there's disproportionality or disproportionate placement is to look at your data, first and foremost. You also need to know how to interpret that data effectively and be able to do the calculations that we'll talk more about at the face-to-face. Applying that data to formulas. So in our world, we talk about special education disproportionality, disproportionality with access to computer science or STEM. Disproportionality exists in so many facets in education based on the number of inequities that essentially take place on any given day. So we want to be purposeful in the formulas that we prescribe to. And that speaks to retrieving the right data to then effectively respond based on the 8 key responsibility areas that are listed here. One is establishing PBIS/MTSS. As I said at the top of this talk, PBIS is an offshoot of MTSS behavior, but does not necessarily mean you have to implement school-wide PBIS to effectively implement a multi-tiered system of support. Number 2 is family and community engagement. In order to understand the students that you're supporting, we have to engage with the families. And one of the interventions that I highly recommend is Check and Connect, which is typically in schools a tier 3 intervention around mentoring. But the key component that distinguishes Check and Connect from other tier 3 interventions is the connection to family. It is a requirement that families are brought to the table and at those conversations so that you can have discussions on how the family can support the student behaviorally around attendance and around their course performance. Number 3, evaluation of data practices. I can't say it enough how important it is to know how to have those conversations that may be a little bit tense around the data that you've collected or that you have at your disposal. It also would be important to do culture or climate surveys. How responsive do you feel the climate that you have in your system is responding to the students you have, and getting their perspective and or the family's perspective around that, as well as your staff. Number 5, I believe, yes, is resource mapping. So community resource mapping. What agencies or supports do you have at your disposal to help support the students that are sitting in your chairs? That is something that I think sometimes gets overlooked in a lot of our schools in particular, is knowing what's at your disposal right away. So for instance, where is there a clothing bank? Where is there a hospital? Things of those natures are important to discuss. Aligning documentation speaks to policy. So the only way that people can influence practices is through policy development and policy shifts and changes based upon the students that you have. Lastly, the last 2, professional development, hence what you're engaged in today and what you will be participating in the face-to-face opportunities. The only way to further learn and grow is through that professional development mechanism. And lastly, social marketing. So how are you as a system making it a welcoming environment so that families, if their student does end up at your door, that they know that their child will be taken care of and are getting the supports they need to eventually return to their home school. So those are the 8 key responsibility areas. And I know in the context that is provided, it's more school-based. However, this can apply across AEDYs, even at the preschool level. So I just feel that it's very important to give you that front loading before we have the face-to-face opportunities to really dive deeper.
Thank you so much, Nicole. As we are finishing up our webinar today, I wanted to just flag for you to check out the training plan that is posted on the patent website that we shared. We are going to be offering free safety care, train the trainer opportunities, but the seating will be limited. So stay tuned. We will be providing an email blast out through Leader Services for folks to participate in Safety Care Train the Trainer, which is a preventative, proactive approach to addressing, to de-escalating and minimizing problem behavior, as well as ensuring that the positive supports are in place for the student to engage in appropriate behaviors. However, if a hold has to happen, really provides a real clear guidance on how to do that in a safe way that protects the students and the other students in the classroom. We have additionally there's an additional intensive module specific to kids with explosive behaviors will also be provided as an opportunity. We will be giving very specific information on how you can avail of this. However, if you commit to this, because this is a significant investment on behalf of the department, if you commit to this 4 days of training, and you'll see the dates that are in the training agenda that's posted on the patent website, you're committing to going back and training your staff in this model. So you do not have to avail of this, but if you do, you have to commit that you are going to go back and train your team members in that model. So more information forthcoming, but I did want to flag that for you. So I'm just going to go check the chat box and see if we have any additional questions. If not, we will sign off for today and hope you have a wonderful Thursday evening. So they're all specific to referrals. So we will have Leader Services have to address how to adjust blocks of time over Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter rather than the summer. I think that they'll provide you with that specific feedback. Leader, do you guys have anything you want to mention specific to that question? Patty's question?
Yeah, I addressed that earlier.
Okay.
And in a nutshell, as of now, other than summer, you have to manually increment any other exit date changes 1 day at a time, but it's an evolving system that might turn into a scenario where users can adjust the exit date more than 1 day at a time. That remains to be seen. But for now, You just use the presumptive exit date modification page to change it one day at a time.
Okay, thank you so much. I would be remiss if I didn't close with saying that the Department of Ed is committed to walking through this journey with you as we update both the requirements, but also the supports to those AEDY private providers, to our LEAs who send, and to our LEAs with in-house programs to ensure that we are doing our due diligence and meeting the needs of our students across the Commonwealth. To that end, you have a unified system of support through PDE and patent. So we've got Dana Clauser and John Esposito at PDE. And then we have a whole team here at Patent Harrisburg supporting this work. We've got Sergio Anaya, Angela Kirby, myself. We've got Gina Colarossi, Jess Haas, and Kat Zimmerman. And those are the preliminary folks or points of contact, but we also have a whole robust team of consultants here, like you just heard from Dr. Nicole Holland-Sims, that are here to provide that technical assistance as you go about this work. Lastly, your intermediate units partners are here to support this work, and the Department of Education has committed, especially in the areas of things like MTSS academics and behavior, that the IDEA funded TAC or training and consultation staff are available to AEDYs to help them build out these MTSS models and behavior. As Nicole shared, you don't have to adopt school-wide PBIS, but you do have to demonstrate that you're putting a multi-tiered system of support in place that addresses universal practices for all students. And your commitment, your approval to run this year is that you are committing to do that. And that is one of the things that we're writing in response to the Department of Justice with regards to, there was a short turnaround time. You don't implement an MTSS model overnight, but you are being allowed to operate because you are committing to implementing that model. And we're here to provide you with the technical assistance, which is why we kicked it off. And as you know, the provisional approval was for 90 days, and that we are working through that. So make sure to get back into the system and update your documents to reflect the components that we asked. All right, so thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.